If you're here for the bathroom, you're going to have to give me a minute and hand me a towel. Hello, I'm Van. Welcome back to my tiny house build. Today we're going to talk about bathrooms. We're going to look at composting toilets and seeing if they're as stinky and as problematic as everybody thinks they are. We're going to look at our shower systems, some of the stuff we did in the sinks. Also going to look at water purification and water storage. So there's a lot to go over, so let's get to it. Okay, water storage. We got a 1,500 gallon tank. We also made sure to get a 1,500 gallon tank that's the black, because you know the clear tanks, they'll grow algae in them. And in order to keep it from freezing, this one's setting in the ground about 20 inches, and it's also going to be filled all the way to the back edge up here on the back side. And I've had success in this climate zone keeping these tanks from freezing in this way. And I like this one because it's black. So it's 1,500 gallons, and that should be sufficient water for this tiny house, being that we're only going to be washing dishes and taking showers. There's not going to be any washing clothes or flushing toilets. Water supply. We get about 48 inches of rain a year here in Kentucky, and it's distributed pretty well throughout the year, 3 to 4 inches a month. On a 1,000 square foot surface area house, you get 650 gallons for a 1-inch rain. So with this surface area here we have, and we use a 6-inch gutter here, we're going to put a pipe on an angle over the top of our tank, cut a hole in our tank, and put a screen over the top of our tank, so the screen works as a filter for the debris, and the water will brush the debris off and self-clean, but the water itself will go on into the tank. We also have the option of pumping out of the creek through a filter, and my house also has a catch system if he ever needs to supplement this as well. So that's where our water's coming from. All right, tank orientation and placement. I just set it about 3 foot away from the house. I wanted it good and close, and I don't have a lot of room. And I just orientated so the outspout here was perfectly lined up with where I wanted to enter underneath the house. It does have a manhole on it here too, so if I ever need to get in here and clean this tank out, get a little sediment in here, I can get in here and clean it out. Now before we go in, I want to bring up money, where we're at on the budget. What you see today, we're currently at $11,500. We've got a lot done inside. Come on in and check this out. These countertops are that Henry Feather finish process that I got the video on previously. If you haven't checked that out and you're interested in doing some quality countertops, make sure you check that video out. I want to give you a shot of how these countertops turned out. Just Henry Feather finish sanded down with acid concrete stain. After it's stained, it's neutralized, and then we clear coat it with high gloss driveway sealer and then a layer of spar urethane. Okay, you've seen the plumbing from the outside. Now this is the water purification and pressure system on the inside. The water comes into this main shutoff valve here at 1.25 inches and then goes to this check valve and then a union. That union is so you can screw these together and go into the pump. The pump's a 1/2 horse jet pump from a box store, and that jet pump pumps pressure into a pressure tank that's 2.5 gallons. That keeps that pump from kicking on and off every time you turn the water faucet on. You can see this T here, this T off here is where it's going into the pressure tank. I don't know if you can see that tank setting right there. That's a 2.5 gallon pressure tank setting right there. So that's what pumps up, gives us 2.5 gallons of pressured water. So this pump's not kicking on and off every time the water's turned off or on. So that water comes up out of that pump and it goes up and it feeds these 2 filter housings right here. And in the first filter housing, we got a sediment filter, which is 100 micron. And then the second is an activated charcoal filter. Now this should take care of everything except for chemicals and microorganisms. We'd have to have an ultraviolet light. So this is not potable water, but it's more than safe to wash dishes, bathe, and brush your teeth with. Regarding the shower here, we just use traditional tiles. We use a little bit of trim stuff to dress it up a little bit. We just use a 32-inch pan, but the shower itself is almost 4 foot wide. We'd like you to go ahead and put the stool in there to give you a spot to sit down and set your stuff. We did polyurethane the wood ceiling above the shower. Hopefully that's going to give us moisture protection. The shower's actually built up a little bit so we can get the fall. We didn't put the plumbing out to the drain. We would only put the drain below subfloor if we had some sort of tank or holding position to put it in. We don't have that. We're going to be doing the gray water system. It's going to be collecting outside. So since this shower is elevated to get the drain underneath it, this box was actually put here to run the drain pipe out that side of the house, because the pitch is to the front of the house and that's the back of the house. We didn't want the water standing on the behind the house. We put it off to the side so we can get away with it. I'm going to be doing an upcoming video with how we're going to deal with that gray water system on the outside. I want to talk about the sink for just a moment. I wanted to point out, first of all, the countertop is done like my other video. If you haven't checked that out on the concrete countertops that I put in here, check it out, because that's a great way. It was cheap to put in here. And the sink itself is just made from a galvanized container we got at a box store for like $10. It was very thin bottom. We couldn't get the tailpiece to seal to it, so we just poured about 1.5 inches concrete, about the minimum we thought we could pour in there to keep it from breaking. We also just took a piece of Durarock and glued it to the bottom of that pan just to give it some rigidity and give that bottom seal something to snug up against. But it worked out great and it doesn't leak. So we got like $20 in the sink, which can't beat that. Why and what is a composting toilet? Well, the why is you either got to hook the septic tank or you got to hook to the city sewage system. And we don't have a city sewage system. And we're in a very tight spot here between a creek and a hill. So we got to have at least the room for the field tile for the septic system, which we don't have. So we went with a composting toilet. A composting toilet is a dry system. We're using cedar chips. And as long as you keep the carbon, the cedar chips, at the right mixture, there is no smell, right? And so it's just waste into a bucket or a catch basin, basically, and it's using cedar chips in order to keep that dry. And the other thing is we're venting off of that. We're pulling air off of that and into the outside constantly, so that keeps from any smell happening. A lot of people don't even use the vent and have not ever had a problem and say that there's not an odor problem. And it's probably something that a lot of people are skeptical of, and you have to experience it to understand it. But it does work, and it works quite well. There's a lot of different dry composting systems out there in toilets that you can buy. Some of them do self-turning. Some of them have a dry composting additive that you put in there. Some have a liquid that you put in there. You know, we want to be able to something that we can be self-reliable, maybe even a grid down situation, or at least take care of it ourselves. So we elected to go with sawdust. Sawdust, wood chips. We use cedar chips just because they're a little more aromatic. So you might ask, what's the process look like? Well, the vent's already on when you come in to use the bathroom, so you don't have to worry about using the bathroom. Then when we put a fresh bucket in there, we go ahead and put a cup, and we have a little tin cup that goes into the little cubby hole that you've seen, that reach in there and get a cup, you put it in the bottom of the bucket, and then once you use your business, if there's any liquid that is visible, you take another cup and you cover it up. And generally 1 cup just covers it up. You just want to keep that dry. You want to have enough wood chips in there to keep the liquid out of it, and you won't have any smell. There's a lot of people that I see build these compost toilets, and they don't allow either for a toe kick, which for a man, that means he can't get close to it to do his business, and it causes a mess. So if you're going to do your composting toilet, I would also, if you can see, I got a toe kick down here. I can get my feet under so I can approach it. Now, so with all compost toilets, you're going to vent it, and so we wanted to use maximum use of our space, and so we built this little tower here that has got holes drilled in our main deck back here. It comes up through here, and there's just an 18-watt small fan that we got, and it's got a dryer vent on the outside, and it's sucking air, right? And there's holes around the lip of the inside of the toilet ring that sucks the air up and out. But we wanted to use that fan also to take the humidity out of here when you're in here showering or using hot water. And so we put this little trap door here, and this little trap door just slides back by the moon, and when you slide that trap door back, then it's sucking the air out of the room into it. Just stays on, and that fan's just plugged in all the time there, so it just runs full time. Just an 18-watt fan, so when you come into the house, you turn the power on, that fan kicks off and starts running. So you got just a traditional toilet seat, This is the piece that is Henry Feather Finish. We attached a ring that went perfectly inside the bucket and drilled holes around the side of the ring, and the bucket just fills out. Once the bucket comes out here, we actually keep the lids here as well. So you can put a lid on that waste, and that waste will actually start to break down in that bucket. So you can leave that waste in that bucket for 30 days, no problem. What's it going to do? Stink? You know what I'm saying? It's in a bucket. It's sealed. It's not going to go anywhere. The microscopic organisms will go to work inside that bucket. So you can either set that out, and we keep another bucket in, or actually keep another bucket. We have enough room down here to store another bucket. So you don't have to just go out and go dump that bucket, right? So there's a pit out there that we've dug that'll handle this waste for this size place for 6 months to a year, depending on how often we use it. And when that pit's filled, we'll bury that pit and dig another pit and continue to go on down in the property. But there's another bucket down here ready to go. So when you have one, you don't have to wait or go clean a bucket out, or if it's cold weather, it just makes it a lot more convenient. We find it to be an easier system to manage. Okay, that's it for the tiny house update. I hope you guys got some good ideas and some things to consider for your project. You know, coming up, we're going to be working on that gray water system. And you know me, I like to build stoves, and so I'm going to be building a fireplace here too. So make sure you like and subscribe. And I've been working on this Murphy bed that I've been playing with, and I've got some pretty unique designs here. It's going to be a Murphy bed, sofa, table, all kinds of stuff, combinations to conserve space. So make sure you come back next time, check that out. You know, I've been pooping for a long time. I'm somewhat of a pooping expert.